Our government started, this is going back to 2019, our government started the biggest ever sort of transformation of the construction industry program, really. Brought in the aircraft industry, the car industry, the construction industry, various architects and engineers to see if we could design and map a route to deliver schools, hospitals, or government-built assets much more streamlined, really. And I was a spokesperson on the design team. So luckily, I had really serious players on the design team, international players as well, which was great for me. And what came out of it was, or what started to emerge from it was the processes that these guys do at, when they're designing aircraft or skyscrapers. It's the processes that they go through to quantify, obviously, the way that they material choice and the way that they go about their day-to-day activity. And what I was trying to do is, can that come down into the housing industry, really? Was I on the right page with a housing system? We designed a housing system and I finished it about 2017. But what was missing? How could I get what was missing from a systems approach to be able to get everybody else on board, really get everybody on the same page? And that's, you talked about it earlier about making things simple. And when you were talking to the aircraft guys, and I talk about this quite a lot in the automotive industry, they don't use the same sort of terminology that a builder will use. So it's very difficult for us to stay engaged when they're trying to tell you the processes they go through. So what I did is I asked them to explain it in layman's terms. Luckily, I'm not scared of asking what you're talking about. And so they did. They explained it to us, and then you suddenly saw the guys around the table as well that were nodding in agreement for a couple of days. Suddenly realised, that's what they're talking about. So, and it's about how can we take the learnings from the aircraft industry, the automotive industry, and bring that into the house building sector, really. And then how can we industrialize? I mean, I don't know about yourself, but MMC was a term that came out of 2015, 2016 by a guy called Mark Farmer. He started the movement and the noise around modern methods construction, which I thought was fantastic. And then it sort of died off because of the people jumped into MMC with products that I thought, you ain't going to run that through any factory that I'd want to be part of. So it's what needs to change in the thinking, the material choices in the systems, and then what are we ultimately trying to do? What we're trying to achieve? And there's no point somebody being clever, one person being clever, waste of time. There's such a and it's a global issue as well. I mean, you're lucky. Trump now is saying he's going to address the housing issue. I mean, for years I've been waiting for our government to say we're going to tackle the housing crisis because they haven't. They've avoided it. And I understand why they've avoided it. I've met the people around them now. I've met work with the advisors. I've worked with some of the key how can I say, decision makers around government, and I've befriended them, and they talk to me, and they talk to me about what they see as changing, what we see as a builder as changing, what government sees as building. You've got, again, it's back to that stakeholder engagement. You've got to understand what it is they want out of it. They want employment. They do want better.
Employment and like just fulfilling the need, right? I mean, we have over 5 million homes that are needed just for our current stage, and I can only imagine where it's like that in the UK. And I'm glad that they're finally listening. I'm glad that the government is waking up because we need to start scaling. We need to start creating these methods. And I love that you're using modern methods of construction because for some reason in everyone's mind, there is this resistance to modular and manufacturing. It is like something that just freaks people out. And so
the
if it's
terms.
the language and the terms to make people feel more comfortable, then so be it, right? Because at the end of the day, Richard, Paul, you and I are here to be of service to let people know that there is a solution. We all hear about it, we all know it. And now, how do we create that solution so it can scale? And it has to be defined. And I love that you have created that with
Well,
your team and have had success doing it.
Thank you. What I think MMC's tried to do, or Offsite tried to do, is try to create a barrier between offsite and onsite. And
Yes.
I think there's a crossover, and I think there's a need for a crossover because I don't know if you've ever had the offsite guys come into a factory and then work in a factory. It's like they're ducks out of water. They haven't got a clue what they're going to do. Factory operates at such a pace, and the guys off from the traditional construction sites. I used to do it every winter. I used to bring them into the factories in the winter, and they say, "Come on, put your money up, come and work with us." They hated it because it was an alien environment to them, and really they weren't much good to us either because our guys would push them out of the way and say, "Come on, let me try to do it." But what you did start to see was they were picking up on the things that were relevant to them. The guys on site went, "Hang on a minute, we call them hacks now. They didn't in my days. It was the way you did it." But they would pick up on the processes, the little hacks that the guys were doing in the factory, and then take it out onto site. Now, what happened here early days in the offsite world here, in MNC world, the volumetric guys here, I saw, they struggle to maintain the staff because what would happen is when you got a lot of new money coming into an offsite, it created a buzz. So the onsite guys would come in to have a little look what was happening in the factories. Again, what could they learn, and what they were doing when they were taking the modules to site. What was happening where they were also the offsite guys because they could pay more than the factory guys. They were pinching the guys in the factory to come on site just to help them get over the hurdle in their early learning. And I think there's room for that as well. But then once they learned it, they realized that the guys in the factory didn't really take well to on-site life. And that's really where I think where I come in is the bridge. It's can we create an environment of change that has the factory production but on site, and that's really it. Now, why is it important? What can you address by sorting out the site conditions on, what can you do? And I think this is where an area where offsite wins, and they overlook it. We used to do it. So what we would do is we would make our core business products, but we would sell products to the builders. So they could take our products and really replicate it on site. And I think that's called sub-assembly. So we would make the sub-assemblies, all the panels for them, and they would take it to site and they'd assemble it. What we found is we were then growing. This is going back nearly 40 years, 30 odd years. So it was what we would see is our business was growing because not only were we manufacturing for ourselves, we were manufacturing for the subcontract industry as well, and that was a great way of keeping cash flow. We were making for them, and also when you're doing that, you've got several sites running at once, and what you usually found is that gained interest. That got the the interest going of other people. They would come to you then. So you're talking
It was
to a lot more people.
collaboration. They were figuring out how to collaborate finally, right? And that
Yeah,
is the
absolutely.
key. Man, Paul, you are just a wealth of knowledge. Paul is the managing director at GUR Build. Again, check out what he's doing on LinkedIn. He's such a beautiful and amazing advocate. I love that we're able to cross the pond and talk a little bit about the UK, and hopefully we can utilize your resources and your connections in order for us to have success on site here in the United States. Thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure to speak with you, Paul, after all these years of following you.
Thank you, Audrey. Pleasure. All mine.
And that's the dirt on Offsite Dirt. Join us for the next time.